Chapter 399. Gu Mingming snuggled in Elvis's arms and swung her little feet. She thought for a while and smiled. Actually, I can't even remember what that Prince Charming Sr. looks like. I only remember that he was not willing to admit defeat, and was so focused when he was trying his best to advance towards his goal. The confidence he exuded when he stood on the podium made me feel dizzy. Maybe I don't like him. I just don't want to be alone anymore. So I found someone to rely on. Elvis frowned and said, Alone? Don't you have Yu Sijin by your side? Gu Mingming burst out laughing. Do you still think that Yu Sijin is real? That's just a story. I've explained it many times. There's no such person in real life. Elvis remained silent and did not reply. Leah, however, wagged his tail and said casually, When you described him from his eyes to his actions, it was too detailed. It's hard to believe if you said it was all fabricated. Gu Mingming had no choice but to explain what a television was. Then Elvis asked, You like television? Gu Mingming nodded and said, If there's no cell phone, television is the best entertainment. So I actually quite like it. Elvis nodded and asked again, What does that machine look like? Where can I catch it? Gu Mingming was taken aback for a moment. Then she laughed out loud and said, Hubby, that's a product from our world's civilization. It doesn't exist here. Elvis's expression was a little disappointed and he muttered, Is it the magical weapon from the beast deity world? Buffed. Gu Mingming held back her laughter and nodded, saying, You can say that, but that thing is harmful to the eyes, so it's good not having it. Elvis nodded and said, So when you first came here, you couldn't see anything at night because of that machine, right? Gu Mingming wanted to say that even without a cell phone and television, she couldn't see anything at night, but after thinking about it, she decided not to, so she nodded silently. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and patted her back gently to comfort her. When you were by the beast deity's side, you suffered. I'm sorry that I couldn't appear by your side to protect you at that time. That's why you suffered so much and even hurt your eye. Actually, Gu Mingming was thinking, in such a melancholic environment, if she said that she enjoyed watching television and playing with her phone, would it be too much of a wet blanket? Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming hugged Elvis back and said, It's not too late to meet him now. I'm willing to sacrifice my right to watch TV and play with my phone for the rest of my life in exchange for your company. Elvis fell into self-reproach for not participating in Gu Mingming's past, but Leah clearly understood something else. So before coming here, you've always been alone? Aren't your father and mother accompanying you? Gu Mingming's smile froze. She pursed her lips and shook her head, saying, My father abandoned my mother when I was very young and mated with another younger female. From then on, there was no news of him, as if he had disappeared from the world. My mother is currently mating with another male, and I, this burden, was finally abandoned after my mother and the new father gave birth to a younger brother. Out of topic. Chapter 400. Elvis and Leah were so shocked that they could not say a word. No matter if it was Gu Mingming's father abandoning his wife and daughter to marry someone else, or her mother abandoning her after remarrying, it was all unheard of and unimaginable. Clenching his fists tightly, Elvis could only feel the suffocation in his chest. He gritted his teeth and said, You are a precious female, how can you? The word abandoning was too heavy. Elvis could not use this word on Gu Mingming no matter what. Gu Mingming smiled bitterly and said, In our world, females are not as precious as here. On the contrary, in many backward places, they would even throw their newborn daughters into the rubbish bin, or go to an illegal clinic to do a B-scan during pregnancy to induce labor after confirming the gender. Gu Mingming could feel Elvis's body trembling. It was an emotion that was struggling between anger and heartache. She knew that her man was grieving for her past. Raising her head and smiling, Gu Mingming said, I am still considered good. At least my mother raised me until I was 14. I could earn some living expenses by performing in the small theater in the amusement park. During the winter and summer breaks, I would also work part-time at McDonald's to earn my tuition fees. After I was 18, life became better. When I was in university, I had a full scholarship and the accommodation and canteen in school were much cheaper than outside. So, the period in university was the most relaxing and satisfying period of my life. I originally wanted to learn how to fall in love, or something in this most beautiful period of my life. Unfortunately, I did not even have the chance to confess before I transmigrated here. There were many words in Gu Mingming's words that Elvis and Leah could not understand. But they were very clear about one thing. That was there was a deep sense of loneliness in Gu Mingming's eyes. This kind of loneliness was exactly what Elvis and Leah saw in each other's eyes when they first met. But at that time, besides loneliness, there was also hatred in their eyes. And in Gu Mingming's eyes, there was hope in that faint sense of loneliness. She gazed at Elvis with her clear eyes and smiled sweetly. I'm still very lucky to be able to come here and meet you. You've given me an unprecedentedly comfortable life and spiritual comfort. You've made me believe that my life is starting to change for the better. Xiao Meng. Elvis did not know what to say to comfort Gu Mingming. After deliberating for a long time, he only said, I love you. Gu Mingming replied with a smile. I love you too. As for Leah, he finally understood why Gu Mingming refused to forgive and accept him at this moment. In her opinion, he had abandoned her, right? No matter how many reasons he had, his actions did indeed constitute abandonment, right? Leah lowered his head and pressed on his chest tightly. He gritted his teeth, but could not see Gu Mingming's face. He used to have the right to protect her, to comfort her, and to care for her. But now why should he feel heartache? Why should he regret it? What right did she have to say, please forgive me? Gu Mingming took a deep breath and smiled. All right, why did you make the atmosphere so depressing? If all the hardships I suffered in the first half of my life were to accumulate good luck in exchange for an opportunity to meet you, I think it's quite worth it. Out of topic. Tragic life is different. Everyone has their own difficult but clenched teeth to persist in the past. We do not have the right to refuse the suffering that God gives us, but we have the right to choose how to face it. Babies, remember, the harder it is, the more you must smile. Chapter 401. Although I have both parents, I still have 6 relatives to rely on. But now I have you and our sons. I have a complete family. I will give you all the love that I had no place to store in the past. Then accept your love with peace of mind. That will be very blissful. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis and smiled sweetly. So, don't worry that I will leave you. You and our sons are all that I have left. Where else can I go after leaving the both of you? Elvis frowned, but the corners of his lips were curled up. He could not tell what he was feeling. He felt heartache and lucky at the same time. He knew the feeling of having nothing but someone. He was in such a state himself. He was the leader of Saint Nazir. But Saint Nazir was not important to him. The only important thing was Gu Mingming. And coincidentally, he was fortunate enough to become the only pillar in Gu Mingming's heart. Her reliance made him feel very lucky and blissful. But the price of this luck was that she had to struggle for so many years in a place he could not see. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming tightly in his arms and kissed her hair, saying, If there is a price to pay for meeting you, then it should have been borne by me. I was too useless, that's why you had to suffer so much. Gu Mingming shook her head and said, Didn't you also drift around for so many years to meet me? If the torture he had endured in the past was to meet her. The corners of Elvis's lips curled up slightly. Those bloody scenes, those cruelty, those tortures and those narrow escapes seemed to have quietly changed in his memories. It was not tragic, not pitiful and not tragic. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and said, Thank you for beautifying my life. That night, Gu Mingming told Elvis many interesting things about her working days. She wanted Elvis to not think that her life was too tragic, but no matter how relaxed her tone was, Elvis's expression always became more and more solemn. After that, Gu Mingming fell asleep in Elvis's arms in a daze. In her half-awake state, she heard Elvis murmuring softly beside her ear. You still haven't answered me, that swimsuit Prince Charming. Who exactly is he? Gu Mingming's heart thumped twice, and she decided to immediately fall into a deep sleep. An ex-boyfriend appearing in front of her every day. A made-up Yusijin appearing every now and then. If this swimsuit Prince Charming was added into the mix, Life was really rich. The next morning, when Gu Mingming stretched herself and sat up, she felt that the atmosphere in the house was not quite right. Rubbing her eyes, she realized that Cole was actually standing in the house, wearing a strange outfit. It was made of animal skin, but the style looked like the attire worn by ancient priests. It was a cheap imitation. Elvis's face darkened as he stood in front of Cole, facing off against him. Cole was very similar to Leah in some aspects. He always had a humble but distant smile on his face. He just smiled at Elvis. Even though they did not speak, Gu Mingming felt as if she could see lightning flashing and thunder roaring between the two of them. Chapter 402. Gu Mingming ignored Leah. Every night, this fellow would crawl onto the bed like a Samoyed. She used all kinds of methods to reject and defend herself. But no matter what she did before she slept, this fellow would still be on her bed when she woke up. Getting used to it was a very scary thing. Because Gu Mingming would no longer be shocked by Lee's appearance on her bed. Directly ignoring this fellow, Gu Mingming jumped down from the bed and walked to Elvis's side. She looked at Cole and then at Elvis, asking softly, "Hubby, what's wrong?" "Great messenger, good morning." Cole bowed respectfully to Gu Mingming, then said, "Today is the beast deity sacrificial ceremony, to thank the beast deity for blessing the females to survive the harsh winter, and to pray for more cubs to be born this year. In the past years, it was always hosted by me, but since the great messenger has returned this year, you should naturally be the one hosting it. So, I am here to invite you over." The corners of Gu Mingming's mouth twitched, recalling how Leah stood on the wooden platform and danced the Great Spirit during her coming-of-age ceremony. She laughed awkwardly and said, "Then, I am not familiar with this business. Since you are used to it, you should do it." Cole seemed to be a little surprised. Immediately kneeling down on one knee, he said sincerely, "I dare not overstep my boundaries." Leah stood up from the bed, wagging his tail, and hung onto Elvis's shoulder like a boneless person, his large tail circling around Gu Mingming's waist. His voice was still lazy and slightly hoarse. He said, "Hosting the beast deity sacrificial ceremony is a symbol of status. Only the most authoritative person has the right to do so. Since you are here, it will definitely not be his turn. Ming." As Leah said, he tightened his tail around Gu Mingming's waist and pulled her closer to him. His slender fingers hooked Gu Mingming's chin, and his long and affectionate eyes shone with a gentle light. His dark red lips parted slightly and he said, "I also want to see how you look like in the priest robe. You must be so beautiful." Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with tenderness. Gu Mingming rolled her eyes and slapped Lee's hand away. She took a step back into Elvis's arms and said, "But I don't know how to dance the great sorcerer." Cole took a step forward and took out a piece of beast skin. He handed it to Gu Mingming with both hands and said, "This is another esoterica that Sauter worships. It is said to be related to the sacrifice ceremony. Please have a look, Lord Emissary." Gu Mingming was traumatized by the word esoteric. She thought to herself, could it be the hand-copied version of 300 poems of the Tang dynasty? But it was not a good idea for Cole to continue acting like this, so Gu Mingming took it over suspiciously. When she opened it to take a look, she almost choked on her own saliva. 2 lines of words were embroidered on the animal skin with some unknown thread. Sacrificial dance. Small apple, slowed down 16 times. The words recited by the priest were the lyrics of the English version of Little Apple. Gu Mingming suddenly laughed. She shook the piece of beast skin and turned to look at Cole, then at Leah. She thought to herself, "Did you know that the previous messenger of the beast deity, whom you all respected as a god, was actually a clown who knew how to dance in the square? How did this fellow manage to trick the entire world into becoming lame? It had been 1,000 years, and they still couldn't find a bicycle? Lord Emissary, is there a problem?" Cole felt that Gu Mingming's gaze was not right, so he asked. Chapter 403. Cole nodded and slowly closed his eyes. He opened his arms slightly to his sides and lifted his chin slightly, giving off a holy vibe. Love plant ah. It's so perfect that it's like a father and a wife. Gu Mingming could not help but burst out laughing. Did I plan to find out about the fruit? Cole widened his eyes and looked at Gu Mingming in disbelief. His agitation was beyond words. He believed that Gu Mingming must have understood the contents of the sacrificial chant from the beast skin, left behind by the previous messenger of the beast deity. He had once doubted that it was possible for such a small piece of beast skin to completely record the sacrificial chant with only such short symbols on it. But now he understood that the wisdom of the beast deity was limitless, and it was not something he could guess. However, Cole would never know that the reason why Gu Mingming knew about such an unconventional English version of Little Apple was because on the first weekend of school, a few girls from her dormitory had gone to the KTV to sing and bond. At the start, all of them acted like virtuous ladies, but after 2 bottles of beer, all of them became more and more uncontrollable, acting all kinds of silly acts one after another. In the end, someone led them to sing the English version of Little Apple for the whole night at the KTV. Because of that, the few girls formed a firm revolutionary friendship. They even made a pact that whoever broke the dormitory rules would have to sing the English version of Little Apple 3 times in the field. Gu Mingming did not do her duty properly because she went to work, so she had to sing at least 1 round in the field every week. If not for the fact that Gu Mingming was very sure that her dormitory mates were attending classes properly before she disappeared, she would have suspected that the previous messenger of the beast deity was someone from her dormitory. Gu Mingming nodded and said, "All right, I got it. Isn't it just a sacrificial ceremony? I'll be there in a while. You can go back first, all right?" Cole looked at Elvis, who had been silent the whole time with a black face. He maintained his usual smile and nodded. Then, he looked at Gu Mingming and said, "Then, I will wait for the great messenger by the side of the deity altar." Gu Mingming waved her hands, indicating that she understood. After Cole left, Gu Mingming looked at Elvis and asked, "Hubby, why do you look so unhappy? Did something happen? Did Cole offend you?" Elvis hugged Gu Mingming in his arms and did not let go for a long time. After a while he said with a deep voice, "If you like foxes, can't you accept Leah? Not Cole, not Cole." Gu Mingming was almost suffocating from Elvis's hug. She said with a dumbfounded expression, "I have nothing to do with Cole. You are always there whenever I see him. I am innocent." Elvis was still hugging Gu Mingming tightly. "You don't like him, right?" Gu Mingming nodded. "I definitely have no intention of liking Cole. Not at all." Elvis heaved a sigh of relief and said, "He came to challenge me just now." "Huh?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in shock. Seeing her shocked look, Elvis felt much more at ease. He heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. "He said he wants to become your beast pet and serve you together with Leah." Chapter 404. You said before that I am not allowed to duel with any males that are not acknowledged by you, so I rejected him. Elvis squinted his eyes and smiled. "Moreover, I feel that I can serve you well." Gu Mingming nodded her head vigorously and said, Yes, I am already dying to have you. I definitely do not have any thoughts of letting a wolf into my house, or having an affair." Elvis carried Gu Mingming horizontally and placed her back on the bed. He tidied her clothes and said, "If there comes a day when I can't satisfy you anymore, I don't have any opinion on how many partners you want to get, or how many beast pets you want to get. But it definitely cannot be Cole." Gu Mingming recalled Elvis's energetic and domineering attitude every time and shuddered all over. She shook her head and said, "That day will probably not come, don't worry blindly." Elvis seemed to have seen through Gu Mingming's thoughts, and his lips curled upwards unknowingly. He nodded with pride and said, "Anyway, that Cole's intentions are not pure. You should stay away from him." Gu Mingming nodded. Gu Mingming said, "Why do you say that? Just because he wants to be my beast pet? Orton even said he wants to be my guardian beast. Didn't you say that his intentions are not pure?" Elvis stopped what he was doing and looked at Gu Mingming with a serious and stern expression. He said, "Cole's level is higher than mine. He is at least at the peak of 4th level, or is already a 5th level orc." Gu Mingming blinked her eyes and said, "Are you afraid that you can't beat him?" Elvis hesitated for a moment and nodded. He said, "To be able to break through the 3rd level boundary, It means that he has already made it before. But he said he wants to be your beast pet. This is very strange. I am worried that what if he was instigated by his female to harm you? I might not be able to beat him. Gu Mingming reflected for a while with a dazed expression, before remembering the fixed pattern of mating to break through to the third level. For people living in the modern world, it was really easy to forget that there was such a thing as leveling up. Gu Mingming asked timidly, that if it's 5th level, is it very powerful? Elvis nodded and said, 5th level is already the highest level an orc can reach. In the entire beast world, there should not be more than 100 who can reach this level. Any higher and it would be the beast king. In the entire beast world, there is only one snake beast of unknown origin that has reached this level. So if Cole has ulterior motives, even if Leah and I work together, we might not be able to protect you from his sharp claws. Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows and said, Cole is actually a demon king? Damn, we are going to fight the boss soon. I am not even prepared. Leah wagged his tail and said, Don't worry, he won't dare to be rash. Gu Mingming turned around and asked Leah, This half-deity, what do you mean by that? Just by looking at her expression, Leah could tell that half-deity was definitely not a good word, and was most likely mocking him. However, he did not mind, and just flipped onto the bed. He knelt behind Gu Mingming and started combing her hair. As he deftly combed her hair with his fingers, he replied, Didn't you see that Cole's eyes almost popped out when you recited that sacrificial chant just now? Gu Mingming nodded and said, He did look rather shocked, but it was not as exaggerated as you made it out to be. Chapter 405. Gu Mingming thought for a while. It seemed that Leah also rarely had any expressions, especially in front of outsiders. He would always fake a smile that looked refined and courteous, but in reality, he was very unapproachable. When he was with her, Leah would have more expressions, but it was also rare for him to show too much emotion. Most of them were low and subtle, the kind that would be overlooked if one did not pay attention. Regardless of whether he was sad or happy, he would always express it with a smile. Gu Mingming held her chin and looked at Leah, asking, Does your family have a group rule like must maintain a fake smile like a prince? Leah shook his head. No, at least my father did not teach me this rule. Gu Mingming asked, Then why do you and Cole look like the wax figures in Madame Tussauds wax museum? Your expression is an unshakable fake smile? Leah remained silent for a moment, as if he was organizing his thoughts before replying, Maybe it's because he is too important to me, so I started to imitate him unconsciously. Gu Mingming thought for a while. Maybe the eldest brother was like a father, and a father's love was as heavy as a mountain? Lee's past was filled with too much sadness, and Gu Mingming did not want to rub salt on his wounds, so she did not continue asking, and just changed the topic back. Then maybe he was just shocked because he did not expect me to really know that sacrificial incantation? That doesn't mean anything. If someone could recite the great Xinhua dictionary in front of me, I would also be very shocked. Leah shook his head, giving a meaningful smile. You only saw shock on his face? Gu Mingming nodded, recalling carefully, she really only saw some shocked expressions. Leah hooked Gu Mingming's chin, then scrutinized every detail on her face like he was admiring a piece of art. He suddenly smiled and said, It's no wonder, after all, not everyone understands him like I do. Leah used his fingertip to stroke Gu Mingming's little face, then said in a seductive tone, Do you want to know why he challenged Elvis to become your beast pet, when he clearly has his own female? Gu Mingming nodded, indicating that she wanted to know. Lee's hand glided from Gu Mingming's shoulder to her arm, stopping at the outside of her upper arm to draw circles gently. Do you want to know what he will do during the offering ceremony? Gu Mingming thought for a while. Although she knew how to dance Little Apple and recite the English lyrics, she really could not predict what kind of tricks the previous clown would come up with. Since this sacrifice was held every year, Leah must know some details. It would be good to rehearse in advance to avoid embarrassing himself. So Gu Mingming nodded again. Lee's hand continued to move downwards, brushing past her elbow and down her arm. He gently grabbed her wrist and continued to ask, Cole has always been someone who will not give up until he reaches his goal. Elvis rejected his challenge. He will definitely have a backup plan. Do you want to know how he will deal with Elvis? Gu Mingming did not even think before nodding her head heavily. Li's hand continued to move downwards, finally intertwining with Gu Mingming's fingers, forming a tightly intertwined position. Leaning his upper body forward slightly, Li's face stopped at the tip of Gu Mingming's nose. He said in an ambiguous tone, "Call me Daddy Leah and I will tell you." Aside from the topic, that, if I say I did not stutter on purpose, would anyone believe me? I swear to the heavens, I really did not do it on purpose. I guess, how many people would have shouted on behalf of Gu Mingming, Daddy Leah? So today's 9 o'clock has ended. Chapter 406. Gu Mingming's face fell. She rolled her eyes and said an affectionate scram, before pulling back her hand and turning to leave. But Leah followed closely behind her, wagging his big tail and said, "You obviously want to know, why are you still so awkward? Just say it once, come on, whisper it softly, just for me to hear." Gu Mingming turned her head and said, "I don't want to know anymore." But Leah smiled and rubbed Gu Mingming's little head, saying, "What an awkward yet cute little fellow. Hey, calling me daddy in front of Elvis. Just thinking about it makes you feel like a little deer is running wild." Gu Mingming blushed and turned to look at this ex-boyfriend, who wanted her to call him daddy in front of her hubby. She shouted in embarrassment, "Scram." Leah shrugged his shoulders and said, "If you're really embarrassed, then let Elvis do it. If he does, I can barely accept it." Uffed. Gu Mingming choked on her saliva and started coughing violently. Her mind started to uncontrollably flash with some SM scenes. Leah smiled coldly and sickly, waving his little leather whip in a condescending manner, whipping Elvis, who was wearing a bikini. Then Elvis whimpered and called out, "Daddy Leah mmm." Goosebumps rose all over Gu Mingming's body, and she felt uncomfortable all over. She even started to be unable to look Elvis and Leah in the eye. But Leah just had to walk to Elvis's side in a flirtatious manner. He placed an arm on Elvis's shoulder and used his fingers to play with Elvis's ears, blowing air into his ears, saying, "Mingming really wants to know, how is it? Do you want to help her? Call me Daddy Leah, and I will fulfill my little wish," Gu Mingming screamed in her heart. "No, no, hubby." Elvis's face was cold as he turned his head and said expressionlessly, "I have a better idea. MMM?" Leah blinked his eyes and responded with a single syllable instinctively. Before his brain could react, his knees gave way, and he was stunned by the powerful aura that Elvis suddenly exuded. The irresistible difference in level caused him to lose his balance. He fell down, and his whole body was in a rather sorry state. Elvis remained standing at the same spot and looked down at Leah from above. Don't go against the orders of the head of the family, and don't challenge the authority of the first partner. Otherwise, you'll be miserable and ugly. After Elvis finished speaking, he retracted his pressure. Then, he saw Leah pouncing into Gu Mingming's arms shamelessly, as if he had been wronged. He curled up beside Gu Mingming's legs in a kneeling position, burying his head into Gu Mingming's thighs. His large furry tail wrapped around half of his body, and he said with a tearful look, "Mingming, Elvis is bullying me again. You have to protect me." Sobs, sobs, sobs. "I want a mate. I want to level up." Sobs, sobs, sobs. Gu Mingming looked at Leah in astonishment, and only regained her senses after a long while. She asked softly, "Pardon me for asking, did you graduate from the Beast World Drama Queen Academy? The Oscars really owe you 10,086 Oscars." Elvis walked to Gu Mingming's side and carried her up. Then, he stepped on the base of Li's tail with one foot, and transformed his other hand into a wolf's claw. With a cold face he said, "Answer Xiaoming's question, or I will shave off all the fur on your tail." "Shave all off." Chapter 407. Leah looked up at Gu Mingming pitifully. With his tail being stepped on by Elvis, he decided not to get up anymore. He leaned over the side of the bed, and strangely felt like a drunken concubine. "All right, you are the first partner." Leah stretched out his arm lazily, then supported his head with his hand and said slowly, "Guess, How many sons does my mother have? Gu Mingming did not understand what Leah meant. But since Leah was the ninth highness, it would definitely not be less than 9. Gu Mingming vaguely remembered that foxes gave birth to an average of 7 to 10 cubs per litter, but only around 4 survived. Unless they had masochistic tendencies, they would not count their dead sons in the ranking. So if Leah was the ninth highness, then he would have at least 2 to 3 litters, right? So Gu Mingming guessed, 11 or 12? Leah shook his head and smiled slyly, saying, 9, I am the youngest. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly, completely not understanding what was going on with Li's smug expression. Was being the youngest in the family also a glorious thing? This only proved that you ran slower than the other brothers when you were a tadpole. Elvis saw that Leah started to answer Gu Mingming's doubts, so he released his leg. Li's tail was freed, and he swayed it lazily. He flipped over and sat up, looking at Elvis, saying, Next time, if you want to threaten me, you have to come up with a more reliable reason, or else I will not cooperate with you. Elvis raised his eyebrows, saying, You don't believe that I will shave all your fur? Leah shook his head, with a you are an idiot expression, saying, Mingming likes my tail so much, if you really shave it, I don't mind. At most I will temporarily maintain my human form, and not show my tail. But the one who will be disappointed will definitely be Mingming. Will you do anything that will make her sad? Elvis clenched his teeth and said coldly, I can try once occasionally. TSK, you really know how to brag. Leah said with a face full of disdain. Gu Mingming face-bombed. Sometimes she really wondered how this pair of enemies could live together peacefully in the past. With Li's cheap mouth, how did Elvis resist from strangling him to death in the past? Stretching out her hand, Gu Mingming gestured for him to stop. Can you answer my question first? I'm going to perform a recital at the sacrificial ceremony later. I'm in a hurry. Leah smacked his lips and resumed the rhythm. Then do you know what Cole's ranking in the family is? Gu Mingming had an inaccurate concept of the beast world. Many of the systems here resembled the feudal society in ancient China. Thus, almost without thinking, he blurted out, Boss. Leah was still smiling and his expression did not change. But Gu Mingming could see a tinge of sadness in his smile. Frowning, she asked, Why? Isn't he the boss? Leah shook his head. He's the second oldest. Gu Mingming did not understand where the sadness on Li's face came from, but her instincts told her that Leah would not ask some irrelevant questions. He couldn't help but think of the inheritance system that existed in ancient times, passing it on to the eldest son. If Cole was the second oldest, then shouldn't he inherit the position of Sauter's leader? Gu Mingming felt a chill in her heart. She asked carefully, Then what about your eldest brother? Leah nodded, as though he was praising Gu Mingming's sharp senses. But that forced smile was so pale and heart-wrenching. Aside from the topic, when I have the money to buy a house, I must choose a place that is the furthest from the square. Sob, sob, sob. There are activities downstairs every day. Singing White Hair Girl 8 times a day. I don't want to live anymore. Chapter 408. He died from the backlash of the mating contract. Leah said calmly, but Gu Mingming could see the raging waves in his long and narrow eyes. Did you have a good relationship with your big brother? Gu Mingming asked. Leah thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, I don't think we had a good relationship, but we were taught since young to be a pair of brothers who could complement each other, so we spent more time together. Gu Mingming did not understand. There were a total of 9 brothers. Why did the eldest and youngest have to be good brothers? Leah continued. The eldest inherited the position of the leader, while the youngest inherited the position of the witch doctor. The arrival of the messenger of the beast deity was the right time, and being born in Sauter was the right place. As long as my big brother and I work well together to form the word human harmony, Sauter should be able to climb to the peak again and regain its former glory. Gu Mingming frowned. This ideal situation might be in line with everyone's interests, but it would definitely hurt the darkness in some people's hearts. As for who that person was, the answer was almost obvious. So, Cole killed your big brother's partner? Gu Mingming asked. Leah shook his head and said, On the day my big brother died, his partner disappeared from this world. No one knew how she disappeared, and no one knew where she went after that. So there is no evidence pointing to Cole as the culprit, but Leah did not continue, and Gu Mingming also remained silent for a moment before continuing Lee's words. But because Cole is the one who has the biggest vested interest in this matter, so you suspect that he planned it? Leah hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded his head and said, "You said before being too perfect in itself is a loophole." Gu Mingming vaguely remembered that she had said this before, but she had already forgotten why she said it. Just looking at Leah, Gu Mingming did not know what to do. To be honest, Cole did give off a feeling of alienation, but to say that he was so evil as to make use of his sister-in-law to kill his own brother, Gu Mingming felt that he was not that kind of person. Usually, one's face reflects one's heart, and those with evil intentions would always have some charm hanging on their faces. But Cole did not feel the slightest bit uncomfortable. Gu Mingming only knew bits and pieces of Lee's past, so she could not judge how much of Lee's memories were distorted due to hatred. She also did not want to make Leah sad by doubting him because of Cole. After deliberating for a long time, Gu Mingming sighed and said, "Maybe it's a misunderstanding?" Leah was not angry, but just smiled faintly and said, "Yeah, maybe it's a misunderstanding." Gu Mingming could clearly feel Lee's sensitivity. His words, which seemed like he was agreeing with her, contained too much disappointment and indescribable sadness. "It's not that I don't believe you," Gu Mingming explained. "It's me at I and said Gu King Gu said, Mingming. I said, me, Gu Mingming I said. I said, it was I say I. Chapter 409. I'm sorry. Gu Mingming apologized. Leah realized that his emotions had put Gu Mingming in a difficult position, so he purposely exaggerated his disappointment and sadness. He hooked Gu Mingming's chin seductively and said, "You clearly know that compared to an apology, I want to hear your confession more. Why don't you call me Daddy Leah?" Sometimes, Gu Mingming really could not tell which words Leah said were real and which were fake. Seeing that he was fooling around again, she pushed his hand away and said, "It's useless if you don't talk nonsense. Didn't you say you will tell me what Cole will do next? Rambling on and on, why are you not focusing on the main point?" Leah twitched his lips and said, "You are quite interested in Cole, why? Do you really want him to be your beast pet and serve you together with me?" Gu Mingming's beautiful eyes widened and she said, "Swallow the word serve. If I hear it again, I will fall out with you." Leah nodded and said obediently, "All right, how about changing it to serve? How about serve?" Gu Mingming clenched her teeth and screamed in her heart, "Heavens, there is a fox spirit here. I wonder if he has passed the tribulation. Do you want to consider sending a bolt of lightning to strike him?" Leah cleared his throat and stopped joking before continuing. "The snow foxes are the followers of the messenger of the beast deity. In this tribe, serving the messenger of the beast deity is the most important duty. In these 1,000 years, there are many snow foxes who have made it in order to break through the third-level boundary. My father is one, my elder brother is another, Cole is also one. Moreover, Cole is the one who has done this the most out of all the people I know." Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked, "What do you mean?" Leah said, "Be it my father, my elder brother or the snow foxes who have made it in order to break through the third-level boundary, even if they don't like their own females that much, they would still protect and take care of them. As for Cole, no one in the tribe knows who his female is, and no one has ever seen him care for any female. Oh, you are an exception." Gu Mingming rubbed her temples helplessly. "So you suspect that I am Cole's female?" Leah shook his head and said, "If he was your male, he wouldn't need to challenge Elvis to snatch my beast pet position." Gu Mingming. I was speechless. Leah said, "What I want to say is, why would a male who doesn't even care about the female he has mated with suddenly come to woo you? I want to be your beast pet?" Gu Mingming said, "Shouldn't you be answering my question?" Leah had a "Is that so?" When Gu Mingming waved her fist, he smiled evilly and continued, "When I was banished from Solder, Cole had just mated and had yet to break through the third level. After not seeing her for so many years, her strength should have increased a lot. so he was not worried about the backlash of the mating contract. So he did not care about the female at all. And you, I'm afraid that in his eyes, you're not just a female, but a supreme authority, Gu Mingming said. So, you think that Cole wanted to get the blessing of the messenger of the beast deity. So he wanted to seduce me? Leah nodded and said, something like that. Chapter 410. Leah smiled and waved his tail. He leaned back and placed his elbows on the side of the bed. Don't forget the fox seductive fragrance of the snow fox tribe. Gu Mingming's face froze. Damn it. She was hit by Lee's fox seductive fragrance during the battle with Elvis in the wild. Her back was sore for a few days, and it felt like she was hit by a train. Elvis frowned and continued Lee's sentence. Isn't the fox seductive fragrance supposed to increase the pleasure of mating? Could it control a person's mind? Leah covered his lips and smiled. He looked at Elvis with a "oh my god, you are so innocent and naive" expression. Elvis's face darkened, and he reached out his claws to shave Lee's tail. But Leah waved his tail and darted into Gu Mingming's arms. He forcefully stuffed his furry large tail into Gu Mingming's hands. Gu Mingming instinctively stroked it twice before realizing that Elvis's face had darkened. He stood silently opposite her without saying a word. Gu Mingming threw away Lee's tail, as if she was electrocuted. She grinned and moved closer to Elvis. Furry fetish is an illness. Moreover, I am the kind of patient who is beyond cure. I can't control my claws. Gu Mingming stretched out her two little hands and clenched them into fists. She looked like a cat's paw. Why don't you chop off my hands? Sobs, sobs, sobs. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming, feeling annoyed and amused at the same time. The jealousy he felt when he saw her touching Lee's tail in satisfaction had long been dispelled by her soft and gentle words. A sweet feeling spread in his heart like honey. He reached out to hold Gu Mingming's little hand and brought her into his arms. Then he placed his tail into her hands. He whispered into her ear, "When your illness acts up, think of me first, all right?" Yeah. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's large tail and nodded her head sweetly. She was also extremely satisfied. Leah looked at Elvis resentfully. Where is your dignity as a wolf? How can you sell your body like others? Elvis raised his brows. Talking about dignity with my own female? Are you crazy or am I crazy? Leah grumbled helplessly. Even you have learned to fight for favor with me. Elvis ignored his little emotions and said, You haven't answered my question. Will the fox seductive fragrance disturb a person's mind? Leah shook his head and said, The fox seductive fragrance itself can only increase the sensation during mating. But as long as it's used well, the female will have the illusion that she's deeply in love with the male and will listen to everything he says. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She looked up at Leah with a complicated gaze. Leah returned Gu Mingming's gaze, and the curve of his faint smile revealed his gentle and serious curves. His long and narrow eyes were filled with deep affection and longing. I won't use the fox seductive fragrance on you. I also want to wait until the day you personally say yes. Gu Mingming blushed and lowered her head to avoid Lee's gaze. Because she was unable to bear his deep feelings. And also because, damn it, on the day she mated with Elvis, this fellow was indeed eavesdropping at the entrance of the cave. Leah did not like Gu Mingming's conflicted and troubled look. So he quickly brought the topic back to Cole. But Cole is different. In order to obtain power, I'm afraid he will use the fox seductive fragrance on you at all costs. Chapter 411. Then what should I do? Gu Mingming was a little afraid. She was someone who had experienced the fox seductive fragrance before. Unknowingly, she would fall into that enchanting state, and there was no way to resist it. Leah looked up at Gu Mingming with a serious and cautious expression. He did not smile, but it made one feel more at ease. Don't leave my side. No matter when, no matter where, no matter what you want to do, you must bring me along. Gu Mingming looked at Leah in a daze. She hesitated for a moment before asking, Can I bring Elvis along? Leah shook his head. Only the Snow Fox tribe is most sensitive to the fox seductive fragrance. Apart from me, the entire Snow Fox tribe can't wait for you to stay in Sodder. So even if someone finds out that Cole is using the Fox seductive fragrance on you, no one will warn you. Although Elvis is more familiar with the Fox seductive fragrance, he needs to use a large amount of it, and it has already taken effect. Only then would he be able to detect it faster than normal orcs. But with Cole's cautiousness, do you think he will use a large amount on you so openly that you will not be able to control yourself and pounce on his Fox seductive fragrance in public? Gu Mingming thought about it seriously before shaking her head. She agreed with Li's words. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's tail. Her little face looked even more crystal clear under the contrast of Elvis's punk-style tail. Her doe-like innocent eyes carried a tinge of grievance and helplessness. "Hubby," Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head. "Don't be afraid. I will protect you with Leah. This situation, we have long expected it." Gu Mingming then recalled that when Leah and Elvis established Saint Nazir, they were preparing to welcome the messenger of the beast deity and replace Sauter. She nodded and felt much more at ease. Leah continued, "There will definitely be some accidents during the sacrificial ceremony later." Gu Mingming turned her head. "Why? Does Cole want me to die on stage in public?" Leah shook his head. "No, he probably wants to be a hero and save the damsel in distress. I heard that all females fall for this." Gu Mingming's lips twitched. "Acting as Qiong Yao." Leah smiled but did not reply. He just looked at Gu Mingming and instructed, "Later on, no matter what, you must not be more than 3 steps away from Elvis and I. No matter what method Cole uses to separate us, you must try your best to reject him. If you really can't reject, you can throw a tantrum. This is the exclusive right of females. Even if you are not the messenger of the beast deity, you can still use it." Gu Mingming raised her head and said, "I'm gentle and well-mannered. I'm not capable of throwing a tantrum." Leah said, "Just bring out the imposing manner you had when you used the potato to smash Elvis. No, as long as I bring out half of my aura, it should be enough to intimidate everyone." Gu Mingming facepalmed. Dark history. This was definitely a dark history. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming asked, "Anything else?" Leah suddenly smiled and exchanged a look with Elvis. "Leave the rest to us." Elvis nodded. "Don't worry." Gu Mingming nodded and did not say another word. Meanwhile, Elvis tidied up Gu Mingming's clothes for the last time. Then he carried her out of the little stone house. Leah followed behind Elvis. One was black and one was white, just like day and night. Meanwhile, Gu Mingming was the sun that shone brightly during the day and warmed the dark night. Chapter 412. Gu Mingming came down from Elvis's arms, but did not leave his and Li's side. She was escorted up the altar by Elvis and Leah, and did not stop when she passed by Cole. At the end of the day, she trusted Leah more than Cole. Standing on the altar, Elvis and Leah took a step back and maintained an arm's-length distance from Gu Mingming. No matter what happened, the two of them had absolute confidence that they could protect Gu Mingming before she got hurt. Gu Mingming swept her gaze below the altar and unexpectedly discovered an interesting situation. Everyone revealed their tails and ears, making it seem as if they were all half-orcs. Gu Mingming tilted her head to look at Leah, questioning him with her eyes. Leah, on the other hand, glanced at Cole below the stage. Gu Mingming followed Li's gaze and indeed saw Cole swinging his fluffy and white big tail, with a pair of furry fox ears on top of his head. That appearance looked a little like Ba Wei. Although she did not know what exactly was going on, Gu Mingming did not dare to simply ask. After all, the males in the beast world had shockingly good hearing. No matter how softly she spoke, it would not escape their ears. Suppressing her curiosity, Gu Mingming took a deep breath. Then, following the amusing beast skin esoterica left behind by the previous messenger of the beast deity, she slowed down her speed by 16 times as she danced in the square, chanting as if she was reading the Bible. "I planted, I'll have to eat the fruit. Bear with it." She could not laugh. "Today is a good day. She felt like an idiot. Pluckfesters give you let out hemmen for you. Damn it. She could not hold it in anymore. Gu Mingming's face turned red. The more she tried to hold back her laughter, the more she wanted to laugh. In the end, She could not hold it in any longer, and laughed until she bent over on the stage, hammering the ground. The people below the stage were dumbfounded. Elvis and Leah on the stage were also at a loss. Elvis asked Leah with his eyes, "Did Cole use the Fox seductive fragrance on her?" Leah shook his head and replied with his eyes, "The Fox seductive fragrance does not have this type of effect." Cole was even more puzzled. He felt that the holy light had shone on his head just now. Why did Gu Mingming suddenly laugh like that? Gu Mingming's smile seemed to have silenced the entire world. By the time Gu Mingming was done laughing and came back to her senses, one could imagine how awkward the atmosphere was. It was like the national table tennis team participating in the Olympic Games. When you stood on the champion's podium to receive the award, the person giving the award had just hung the gold medal around your neck, and then you suddenly danced to 18 touches. It was being broadcasted live on TV all over the world. That was King embarrassing. Background music, the most frightening thing, is the sudden silence in the air. Gu Mingming cleared her throat and stood up. Pretending to be calm, she said, "Then my dad is the beast deity, you all know that, huh?" Boom! There was an uproar below the stage. Even Cole was shocked, speechless. Chapter 413. Miscalculation, such a miscalculation. Damn it. Now it was back to normal. Gu Mingming glanced around at the sea of people with flags waving in the wind, and the joyous scene. She laughed awkwardly and thought to herself, how could it be back? Clenching her teeth, Gu Mingming decided to treat this sacrificial ceremony as a surprise version of a mini theater in an amusement park. There was one time when the main character was heartbroken and spouted nonsense on stage, changing his lines randomly. Then, the supporting actors had to act according to his words on the spot. And surprisingly, that scene received unanimous praise from the audience, saying that it was rich in emotions, exquisite and full of emotions. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mingming gestured for everyone to quieten down and said, "Let me formally introduce myself to everyone. I am the eldest daughter of the beast deity Gu Mingming. I am here on the orders of the beast deity to bring you light and hope, food and knowledge." Beast deity, beast deity, beast deity. The audience cheered and Gu Mingming unintentionally pushed the beast deity's majestic image to a new level. After all, in the beast world, being by the beast deity's side was bliss and safety. But the beast deity sent his own daughter here, just to let them live a better life. So touched. The beast deity was indeed a majestic, sacred and inviolable existence. Gu Mingming suddenly understood a little. No wonder the previous messenger of the beast deity could fool everyone with a little apple and 300 poems of the Tang dynasty. It was not that the previous messenger of the beast deity was too smart, but the people in the beast world were generally pure and kind, as if they had never been fooled before. Glancing at Cole, she realized that he was also looking at her with a face full of admiration and devotion. Gu Mingming thought to herself, did Leah overestimate Cole? How could he believe such nonsense? Gu Mingming straightened her back and continued, I laughed just now because my beast father, the beast deity, responded to my prayers. He said. Gu Mingming purposely dragged out her words until everyone's eyes were fixed on her, holding their breaths and waiting for her next words. Gu Mingming then slowly said, He will bless the beast world and protect the devout believers from misfortune. It was actually very immoral for Gu Mingming to fool people like this, because even the content she used to fool them was not original. Yes, she copied the Yellow Turban Army's idea. If you turn misfortune into fortune, it means that the beast deity has blessed you. But if you die, it only proves that you are not pious enough. However, such a verbal trap caused the audience to cheer and jump with joy. The scene was even more exaggerated than when the female soldiers were unable to control their emotions and burst into tears when Fatai was inspecting the military camp. Gu Mingming maintained the smile of the Statue of Liberty and waved her hands. Since the beast deity has already agreed to our request, then this sacrificial ceremony can end now. Let's all go and do what we need to do. Don't gather here. After all, the police will check your ID card for illegal gathering. The audience was stunned. They had probably never experienced such an efficient sacrificial ceremony before and couldn't get used to it for a while. It was just like the teacher who would say, "Come on, students, we'll be done with this question." One day, before the bell rang, the teacher had already picked up his books and walked out of the classroom. Ah, happiness comes too suddenly. It's also very troublesome. Gu Mingming felt a little helpless as she looked at everyone staring at her in a daze. Chapter 414. Actually, the orcs did not know how to count, but at least they knew that the quota was getting lesser and lesser. Moreover, 6 single males had become partners in just a few days, and they were all the top beauties in their respective tribes. This was indeed the beast deity's blessing. Because of this, the males became even more enthusiastic, shouting for Gu Mingming to announce the selection rules for this round. Gu Mingming gestured a "please be quiet" gesture, then put on the professional smile of a female executive, saying, "Considering the families of the warriors, the number of applicants this time is set at 5. The topic of recruitment is this." Gu Mingming took out 2 chilies, one red and one green, from her pocket. Only Elvis and Leah knew about this method of making pockets on beast skin. So when Gu Mingming conjured 2 strange fruits out of thin air, the crowd below the stage was shocked once again. Gu Mingming completely did not know that her unconscious action was as shocking as swallowing the Leaning Tower of Pisa in front of everyone. She just minded her own business and said, "Everyone look closely at this fruit. This is the beast deity's blessing. It is also limited to sunset. The top 5 who bring back the most will obtain the quota to join Saint Nazir." After Gu Mingming finished speaking, she threw the 2 chilies into the crowd, saying, "This is for you to use as a sample." Gu Mingming regretted after throwing it. It was like throwing a piece of meat bone into a wolf's den. Would there be a stampede? Elvis carried Gu Mingming and said, "Since we are done, let's go back to the stone house first." Gu Mingming nodded, looking back at the crowd worriedly. Where are they? Finish fighting? So efficient, passing by Cole. Cole did not stop Gu Mingming from leaving, but instead followed behind Elvis, walking shoulder to shoulder with Leah. Leader Cole, why are you following us? Your place is in the opposite direction, Gu Mingming said. Cole was still smiling, asking, "Mighty messenger, if I find the most beast deity's blessings, can I also join Saint Nazir?" Gu Mingming's lips twitched, saying, "Didn't I say it previously? Your soldier is the tribe of the previous messenger of the beast deity. It is against the rules for me to snatch their territory the moment I arrive. You better guard Sauter well." Cole seemed a little down as he asked, "Could it be that Sauter has already been abandoned by the beast deity, so it can't receive the messenger's favor?" Gu Mingming laughed awkwardly and said, "A new ruler brings his own courtiers. This has been the case since ancient times. Everyone feels more at ease with their own people. I hope you understand." Cole's eyes were somewhat similar to Lee's, but they were not Lee's classical phoenix eyes. Instead, they were slightly bigger and shorter, looking less amorous and more radiant. And at that moment, those radiant eyes were like transparent glass refracting the sunlight, shining directly on Gu Mingming's face. He asked, "Can't I also become one of the great messenger's people?" Gu Mingming laughed dryly and said, "Of course not. I'm not interested in other people's husbands. It's immoral to destroy other people's families. I won't do such a thing." "The great messenger knows that I have made it?" Cole asked. Gu Mingming said, "My hubby is a 4th-level orc. You were completely fine the last time he released his pressure. This proves that you've broken through the boundary of level 3, right? Aside from the topic, it's time to say our goodbyes once a day again. Today's 9 o'clock has ended, babies. See you tomorrow." Chapter 415. Cole lowered his head and rubbed his chin. So it was a mistake here. If I had known earlier, I would have pretended to faint. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly. "This is not the main point, right?" Cole looked up. "Then what is the main point?" Gu Mingming was taken aback. She suddenly could not remember what the main point was. "The main point is that you are already a mated male. Why don't you go home and play with your own female? Why do you keep following my Gu Mingming?" Leah purposely stood in between Cole and Elvis. I heard that the great messenger likes your tail the most? Cole smiled at Leah. I heard that the great messenger likes your tail the most? Leah paused and asked, what is it? Cole asked. Then do you still want your tail? Leah sneered. This time you want to snatch my tail? Cole swayed his fluffy tail. You don't have to snatch it. I have it. Leah said in a tone of sudden realization. Ah, I forgot. You just like to see others in pain. Cole's gaze sharpened as he stared coldly at Leah. The smile on his face was still maintained, not even the slightest change in its arc. He said, when the day comes where you no longer need to rely on the great messenger's protection to return to Sauter, come and say this to me again. The current you still doesn't have that right. Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder. She gestured for him to put her down. Elvis hesitated for a moment. Then he did as he was told. Gu Mingming walked to Leah. She opened her arms and gestured for a hug. Leah was stunned for a moment. He smiled gently and carried Gu Mingming. He buried his nose in her neck and enjoyed her hug. As for Cole, he was no longer important. Gu Mingming hugged Lee's neck back. She looked at Cole. The current Leah is no longer the ninth highness you can chase away. He is my family now. Please be more respectful when you speak. Or else, I don't mind abusing my authority as the messenger of the beast deity to destroy your Sauter. Cole did not expect Gu Mingming to stand up for Leah. He was slightly surprised, but his expression did not change. Placing his right hand on his left chest, Leah said respectfully and sincerely, yes, I will follow the great messenger's orders. Gu Mingming patted Lee's back lightly, then said to Cole, if there's nothing else, Leader Cole, please return. Our family is going back to eat. We didn't prepare any food for you. Cole tilted his head and smiled. It's all right, great messenger. I just need to watch you eat. Gu Mingming shook her head and returned a polite smile. Didn't your mother tell you that it's rude to stare at others eating? Cole shook his head honestly. Gu Mingming laughed coldly and said, then let me tell you now. It's very rude to stare at others while they are eating. You will be despised. Cole nodded his head in confusion. Then I'll turn around when you're eating. I won't look. Gu Mingming twitched her lips. But our family didn't prepare any air to serve you. Unless you start to stop breathing when you enter my house, it might not be convenient for our family to serve you. Leah tilted his head and leaned against Gu Mingming's neck. He looked at Cole through Gu Mingming's chin. He said coquettishly, Mingming, I don't like foxes other than me and our family. Aside from the topic, yesterday, I saw a reader's little darling asking about Cole. I was very touched, little darling, who likes to read the text seriously. Chapter 416. Gu Mingming looked at Cole apologetically and said, you heard it. Leah has always been this awkward and can't tolerate a second vixen at home. So I'm sorry. Don't go to my little stone house if there's nothing important in the future. Cole tilted his head and asked in confusion, is the great messenger siding with Leah? Gu Mingming nodded and admitted openly, yes, can't you tell? Cole nodded and said, I can tell, but I'm not sure, so I'm just asking. Cole remained silent for 2 seconds before continuing to ask, since the great messenger likes Leah so much, why don't you mate with him and instead let him stay in the position of a beast pet? This was Gu Mingming's weakness. Although her breakup with Leah was planned by Leah, she couldn't explain why, but she felt a sense of guilt. It was as if she was the one who betrayed them. Maybe it was because after the breakup, she had Elvis and was living a blissful life. But Leah had always been single for no reason, staying by her side as a beast pet to protect her. But now, what else could she give him in return? Relationships were the most vulnerable things in this world. Elvis took a step forward and blocked Cole's gaze, saying, who do you think you are? Why do we need to answer to you about our family's matters? Cole suddenly laughed. From his point of view, although there were only 3 people in Gu Mingming's family, but this family relationship was so messy and hard to understand. Beast pets were just playthings for females when they were excited. Females would not take it to heart, even if they were ridiculed by others. But Gu Mingming was standing up for Leah. Although the first partner would not stop females from mating with other males, He would usually create obstacles in the dark and not let other males get close to his own female easily. This was especially true for males who were handsome and liked by females. They were even more guarded against them. For someone like Leah, he should be guarded to the death before mating. Someone had ridiculed his status as a beast pet. Shouldn't the first partner stand by and watch coldly? It would be best if Gu Mengmeng would say something to provoke Leah and make him leave disheartened. But this stupid wolf from Gu Mengmeng's family actually jumped out to help Leah? Elvis snorted coldly and ignored Cole's blank look. Just as he was about to turn around, Cole suddenly opened his mouth and said, "I can be considered as that fox's second brother. With such an identity, can I ask about it?" With a cold expression, Leah carried Gu Mengmeng and stood beside Elvis. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Gu Mengmeng, standing on either side of her. His long and narrow eyes were filled with coldness and composure. His voice was calm, without any anger or growl, just like a bowl of still water, without any ripples. He said, "I remember that day when Sauter banished me." Leader Cole said it himself. "From now on, Sauter will no longer have a ninth highness, and you will no longer have a brother like me." What? Now that he saw Meng Meng treating me well, he wanted to come back and claim kinship? "I'm sorry, in my family, there are only Meng Meng and Elvis. There's no so-called second brother." After Leah finished speaking, he turned around and left with Elvis without turning back to look at Cole. Gu Mengmeng could feel Lee's body trembling. Chapter 417. Was he always like this? Pretending to be nonchalant and able to face everything with a smile. But in actual fact, Sauter was still a scar on his heart, right? How could it not hurt? "I'm sorry." Gu Mengmeng leaned on Lee's shoulder and wrapped her arms around his neck, whispering, "Let's settle the recruitment as soon as possible, then return to Saint Nazaire. In the future, the beauty pageant will be held in Saint Nazaire instead, and we will never come to Sauter again, all right?" Lee's body stiffened, and he raised his head with difficulty, caressing the back of Gu Mengmeng's head. His voice was like flowing water, with a tinge of pain, as he said, "Being able to make you feel heartache for me once. The past is already worth it. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm no longer the ninth highness that could be manipulated by others now. I also have something that I want to protect with my life." Gu Mengmeng did not say anything. She remembered Elvis saying that in the past few years, Leah only had destruction in his eyes. Everything he did was to destroy Sauter. But now, he said that everything he did was to protect something with his life. Her heart shrank violently. Could she say that she did not understand? Did she not understand what he wanted to protect? Gu Mengmeng's hands subconsciously tightened, and she bit her lower lip, using an almost inaudible voice to say, "I'm sorry, Leah." Lee's smile was so bitter, but he could not bear to put Gu Mengmeng in a difficult position. Hence, he took a deep breath and forced his smile to look bright and affectionate. He said in an extremely ambiguous tone, "You know, compared to an apology, I prefer to hear a confession. If you really love me, why don't you call me Daddy, Leah?" Gu Mengmeng did not say anything, just quietly hugging Leah, snuggling in his arms along the way, quietly, not struggling or making a noise. Leah knew that Gu Mengmeng was comforting him. He also knew that once they returned to that stone house, Gu Mengmeng would return to Elvis's arms and would not let him hug her like this again. His footsteps slowed down unknowingly. He hoped that there was no end to this road. But in the end, they still returned to that small stone house. There were two people standing outside the house. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback for a moment, recalling that one of them was the first partner of that half-beast snake Ellie. What was his name again? Gu Mengmeng had forgotten. Waving her hands, Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, "Hi, official Su Xian. How come you have time to come here today? Don't you need to serve your Bai Suzhen?" Ellie's first partner pointed at his own nose and said, "Lord Su Xian?" Gu Mengmeng nodded sincerely and said, "Yeah, let me tell you, there are 3 people I admire the most in my life. Dong Yong dared to sleep with immortals, Ning Kaichen dared to sleep with ghosts, and Su Xian dared to sleep with snakes." I really didn't expect that I would actually meet a living one. TSK. This is definitely something that I'll see in my lifetime. Leah knew that Gu Mingming's nonsense was a signal, indicating that he should let go. Placing Gu Mingming on the ground, Lee's gaze was filled with unconcealable gentleness. He watched as the last strand of her hair slipped away from his fingertips, as her joyful back view leaped up and walked to Darch, patting his shoulder and smiling in a rather wretched manner. Leah could not help but smile too. Even though his arms were empty, Leah already felt very satisfied looking at her like this. Chapter 418. Although Darch did not understand what Gu Mingming was talking about, but the messenger of the beast deity's words would never be wrong. So Darch bowed and said, "Thank you, great messenger, for bestowing me with a name. From today onwards, I will be called Official Su Xian." Ptahaha. Official, why are you looking for me today? Gu Mingming asked with a smile. Official Su Xian smacked his head and said, "Oh right. I almost forgot." Gu Mingming held onto Elvis's arm and held back her laughter, asking, "What is it? Say it." Official Su Xian said, "Ellie wants to join the Solder tribe, so I am here to bid farewell to you." In the beast world, it was common sense that male passions would follow the females wherever they went. Ellie had 9 partners, but now, only this official Su Xian and another male partner, whom Gu Mingming could not remember even though he looked familiar, came to bid farewell to her. It could be seen that these two still had feelings for Saint Nazir. Gu Mingming kept her smile and nodded, saying, "All right, I understand. Although you will no longer be tribesmen of Saint Nazir in the future, don't forget that Saint Nazir used to be your home. Have you all remembered the method I taught everyone to store food before winter? Before winter this year, bring the males in your family to prepare more food. Don't let the females eat you all up when they are hungry." Official Su Xian scratched his head and gave an embarrassed smile, saying, "You don't blame us for leaving Saint Nazir?" Gu Mingming said, "I'd rather tear down 10 temples than ruin a marriage. I can't possibly force you to give up your own happiness and stay in Saint Nazir as bachelors for the rest of your lives." Official Su Xian hesitated for a moment and asked, "Can I really use the method you taught me to store food for the winter?" "Don't worry, I will definitely not teach it to others." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Of course you can. It's up to you whether you want to teach it to others or not. Since I told you all, I have no intention of hiding it." Official Su Xian pursed his lips, as if he wanted to say something, but was too embarrassed to do so. He hesitated for a long time, making Gu Mingming furious. He patted him on the chest and said, "You weren't like this in the past. If there's anything you want to say, just say it. You're like a sissy. If you continue to blabber like this, don't say that you know me when you go out in the future. I'll find it embarrassing." Official Su Xian's face turned even redder after being teased by Gu Mingming. He lowered his head like a child who had done something wrong and asked softly, "Then, will you still give us the salt to marinate the meat?" Gu Mingming thought for a while and said, "Salt is a resource of Saint Nazir. You are no longer a tribesman of Saint Nazir, so I naturally cannot provide salt to you for free. However, you can use prey of equivalent value to exchange with us." As for the exact method of exchange, I will go back and discuss with Elvis before telling you. Official Su Xian hurriedly nodded. As long as he was willing to exchange, it was good. After all, Gu Mingming was the messenger of the beast deity, and all the males in the world would be proud to provide her with food. Moreover, with Elvis's hunting abilities, Gu Mingming would never lack food. So, her willingness to exchange was actually a form of taking care of him. This thought made Official Su Xian extremely grateful. He felt even more guilty for leaving Saint Nazir because of his mating. Hence, he promised again and again that he would not tell anyone about the secret of marinating the meat. Even if Ellie asked, he would not say anything. Gu Mingming really wanted to say, "Actually, it's fine even if you say it." Chapter 419. After Official Su Xian left, Gu Mingming and the other two returned to their temporary house. The three of them had a tacit understanding not to mention what Cole had said to him, and also did not ask Leah about the past where he was hurt again and again. Instead, they were discussing another matter regarding Cole. Gu Mingming said, "If Ellie was sent by Sauter to stay by my side, then her motive shouldn't be just to trick 9 males from Saint Nazir to mate with, right? Although she's a half-orc, but with her looks and tricks, there should be quite a number of males who are willing to mate with her." Leah said, "I also find it very strange, not only about Ellie wanting to join Sauter, but also the offering ceremony just now. Cole actually did not try to separate Elvis and I from you, nor did he create any chance for himself to perform, and even said some things that made you uncomfortable on the way back. This is really not his style." Elvis remained silent. He did not say a word and just frowned. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis and asked, "Hubby, what's wrong with you? Are you still upset because of Cole?" Elvis looked into Gu Mingming's eyes and nodded. Gu Mingming laid on Elvis's thighs obediently and looked up at his blue eyes, asking, "Is it because he said he wants to be my beast pet?" "Don't worry, I won't rear a beast pet." Elvis raised his eyebrows and glanced at Leah from the corner of his eyes, asking with a smile, "Why not? Most beast pets are obedient and know how to please you, unlike me who always do things that make you angry." Gu Mingming giggled and said, "Obedient and adorable males. I have already given birth to 4 of them. Hutta and the other 3 are the ones who know how to please me the best in this world." Upon hearing that, Elvis's face darkened. He frowned and asked, "Miss them?" Gu Mingming nodded. She had been busy with the recruitment these few days and realized that she had neglected Lee's emotions today. The physical and mental fatigue made her want to retreat and return to that cave to hug her sons and give them a good rub. Gu Mingming touched Elvis's tail from time to time, saying, "I wonder if they cried when I was not around? Did they eat properly? Did they miss me a lot?" Elvis laughed coldly and said, "Have you seen a wolf cry before?" Gu Mingming was taken aback. She tried hard to recall, then shook her head. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and said, "Although I don't really like them, but they have inherited our powerful genes. If they want to die just because their mother beast is not around, then there's no need for such trash to exist." Gu Mingming glared at him and said, "Who are you calling trash? You're the useless one. Your entire neighborhood is useless." Elvis sighed. "You are throwing a tantrum at me because of them again." Gu Mingming pursed her lips, feeling rather guilty. Elvis shook his head and rubbed Gu Mingming's little head, sighing softly, "I dislike them more and more. Why don't you consider Leah? I feel that interacting with Leah is much easier than interacting with those 4 fellows." Gu Mingming smiled apologetically and said, "Don't be like this. My son is also very easy to get along with, really." Elvis raised his brows. "Really? But why do I become so irritable when I see them?" Gu Mingming mumbled. "Because you might have rabies." Elvis, "What?" Chapter 420. Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little nose and shook it. With a loving expression, he said, "If you could give me more attention to them, I might not hate them so much." Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist. "Those sons are your own after all. Think about how much suffering I had to go through to give birth to them. Even if you cherish my hard work, you should include them a little." Elvis sighed. "That's why I kept tolerating them. I didn't chase them away or bite them to death." Gu Mingming pulled a long face and chided him. "If you continue to say such scary things, I will get angry." Elvis smiled bitterly. "All right, I won't say it anymore. I won't say it again." Gu Mingming kissed Elvis's face. "Hubby is so obedient." But this time, Gu Mingming did not dare to show that she missed her sons in front of Elvis. In order to hide her emotions, Gu Mingming could only bring the topic back to Cole. "Hubby, you haven't told me why you hate Cole." Elvis remained silent for a moment. "I can't say it. I just feel that he is very dangerous." Gu Mingming gave a naughty smile. "You won't badmouth him just because you can't beat him, right?" Elvis's face darkened as he said, "Yes, his abilities are above mine, and his looks are 80% similar to Lee's. Your favorite big tail, his one looks much bigger than Lee's too. He combined all of Lee's and my strengths. How about it? Are you interested in taking him in?" Gu Mingming looked at Elvis's darkened face. She suddenly smiled. She held up Elvis's face and kissed him. "Hubby, You look so cute when you are jealous. Elvis was a little dazed by Gu Mingming's kiss. But he felt sweetness in his heart. With a faint smile in his blue eyes, he held Gu Mingming's chin and brought it to his mouth. He kissed her deeply until her plump lips were slightly red and swollen from his kisses. Only then did he slowly let go of her. Using his thumb to caress her lips, he said, "You like to see me jealous?" Gu Mingming nodded. Her face was flushed red due to the lack of oxygen from the kiss, adding a touch of charm to her smile. "You keep telling me to accept others as partners every day. I thought you didn't care about me anymore. But wasn't your jealousy a little too serious? Although it looked ferocious, I felt at ease. You finally care that there are other males around me. Moreover, you look so handsome when you're jealous." Elvis could not help but laugh out loud. He clearly remembered that whenever his face darkened in the past, even Leah would avoid him. He had heard many descriptions such as terrifying, cruel, bloodthirsty, brutal, and so on. But this was the first time someone had said that his darkened face was extremely handsome, with such a satisfied smile on his face. "You're not afraid of me?" Gu Mingming replied. "Why should I be afraid of you? I remember back then, you were very afraid of me, as if you always felt that I was going to eat you up." Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders shyly and used her elbow to hit Elvis's chest. She pouted coquettishly. "Damn you, haven't I been eaten up by you long ago? Our son is already so big." Chapter 421. Gu Mingming smiled as she leaned into Elvis's arms. "It's not that exaggerated. At least our Hutta and his brothers won't become your love rivals." Elvis smiled coldly. "You have to be especially wary of those 4 rascals. They are the ones who snatch my wife the most." Gu Mingming pounded Elvis's chest in a coquettish manner. "A father should have the bearing of a father. Don't always compete with your own sons, all right?" Elvis sighed. He felt helpless at how Gu Mingming always defended those 4 little ones. But the more she defended them, the more he felt they were a hindrance. The 3 of them discussed Ellie and Cole for a while. Their conclusion was that it was better for Ellie to stay in Sauter. It would save them trouble. During dinner time, Oriton carried a giant beast that looked like a rhinoceros to the outside of the stone house. He stood at the door and hesitated for a moment before calling out, "Gu Mingming, are you there?" Elvis stood at the door and blocked all the light. He frowned when he saw the giant beast Oriton was carrying. He asked coldly, "What's the matter?" Oriton looked at Elvis with a poker face. "I'm here to deliver food to Gu Mingming." Elvis replied, "My female, I will prepare my own food. You don't have to worry." Oriton replied, "Although you are Gu Mingming's first partner, you shouldn't be able to stop other males from courting her." Elvis laughed coldly. Then he slowly released his pressure. He gradually increased the pressure. Oriton's forehead was covered in sweat as he watched the beast. Then his knees buckled from the pressure, and he knelt on the ground on one knee. The giant beast fell to the side. Oriton used his fist to support his body. However, his head was still held up high. Moreover, there was no expression on his face. He looked at Elvis with a poker face. There was no fear and no intention to retreat. Gu Mingming peeked her little head out from Elvis's waist. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist and said in a coquettish voice, "Why did you scare him for no reason? You even made Leah uncomfortable in the house." Elvis then retracted his pressure. He rubbed Gu Mingming's little head lovingly. "Can I send someone flying when he comes to court you?" Gu Mingming glanced at the giant beast beside Oriton. She looked up at Elvis. "You don't hit a smiling person. He came to visit us with a gift. Why are you beating him up? Isn't it just a free meal?" "Petty," as Gu Mingming said. She pinched Elvis's waist lightly before skipping to the front of the gigantic beast. She laid on the beast's face to look at its single horn. It looked a little like a rhinoceros, and a little like a hippopotamus, or a hippopotamus with rhinoceros horns. Anyway, it looked quite ugly, but that horn looked really good. Gu Mingming rubbed her hands together and looked at Oriton. "You prepare your own ingredients, and we will be in charge of processing them. Just treat it as sharing a meal, and I won't accept your gift, all right?" Oriton looked at Gu Mingming without any expression on his face. He opened his mouth slowly. His voice was flat. Can I stay for a meal too? Gu Mingming nodded. Of course. This prey is yours. Oriton shook his head. This prey is yours. Chapter 422. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and pointed at the horn that looked like a rhinoceros, asking, You like it? Gu Mingming nodded and did not say a word. Without another word, Elvis went up and broke it off with a snap. Then he walked to Oriton and waved his hand, saying, I want this thing. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded and could not say a word as she looked at Elvis's actions. Oriton was expressionless as well, as if this was very normal. Elvis called Leah over and threw the beast horn into his hands, saying, Go wash it, Xiaoming wants to play with it. Gu Mingming held her forehead and thought to herself, why did his words sound so awkward? But she could not retort after all. It was indeed what she wanted. The moment Elvis brushed past Oriton, he said coldly, You can scram now. Don't waste the air in our house. Oriton clearly did not know where the joke of wasting air came from. He only knew that it was the first partner's order for him to leave. After hesitating for a moment, when Elvis was about to take his second step, she said, I'm here to share a meal. I'll prepare my own ingredients, can I? Elvis paused and turned to look at the beast, laughing coldly. I've already taken the only thing that we are interested in from that prey. Do you think we will still let you stay for a meal? Oriton remained silent for a moment, before replying, Oh, then I'll hunt a new one tomorrow and come back for a meal. Gu Mingming held her forehead and said, No need, just one of that beast horn is enough for me. Since you've already brought the thing, don't carry it around, let's eat together. Elvis frowned and said, We don't have extra air to serve our guests. Gu Mingming pouted her lips and said, We've already taken his beast horn, and the ingredients were prepared by him. It's not appropriate to not even let him eat. Let him bring his own air, all right? Elvis's face darkened and he frowned, asking, You like him? Gu Mingming shook her head and covered her mouth as she laughed. Hubby, keep your seductive look. I'm afraid I can't control myself and pounce on you in front of everyone. Elvis smiled evilly and said, Pounce on me? That's exactly what I want. Gu Mingming bumped Elvis's shoulder and said, Stop fooling around, there are still people watching. Elvis glanced at Oriton, then turned to look at Gu Mingming. How about I directly release my pressure and make him faint? Gu Mingming blushed as she placed both her hands on Elvis's ears and whispered, The person who went to pick the chili should be back soon. I have to choose 5 warriors. You know, you don't have enough time. Besides, it's such a physically taxing task. Why don't you let me eat my fill first? The corners of Elvis's lips curled up, and there was a smile in his eyes. I can leave the selection of warriors to Leah, but feeding you is the most important thing now. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and kissed him. Thank you, tribe leader, for your understanding. Elvis returned a kiss to Gu Mingming's little face and finally smiled. He glanced at Oriton disdainfully and said, Xiaoming doesn't like bloody scenes. Bring that to the stream and clean it up before bringing it back. If you don't know how to do it, just ask anyone from Saint Nazaire. Chapter 423. Oriton didn't even ask why. He picked up the beast and walked towards the stream. At this moment, Leah had already washed the beast horn and brought it back. He held it in his hands and looked at it for a while. What's so special about this stupid thing? Gu Mingming smiled mysteriously and said, You don't know about this. At my place, it's already not bad to be able to buy a comb made from a buffalo horn. Sometimes it's even fake goods made from plastic. See this? It's the real deal good stuff. Leah and Elvis looked at each other and sighed helplessly. Gu Mingming was always like this. She would casually take out and share the things that others cherished, but could not get. This kind of thing that no one would want to bend down to pick up if it was thrown on the ground. But she was very fond of it. She gestured with her hands, thinking about something. Sometimes she frowned, and sometimes she laughed. She was as happy as a child. Gu Mingming fiddled with the beast horn as she said, Later on, whoever comes to share a meal with us, you can place our biggest pot on the rack, And let's have a hot pot. In any case, we'll have new chilies tonight. Don't save the old ones. Put them all in the pot to make the soup base. Leah nodded and did as he was told. Even though Gu Mengmeng did not mention his name, the whole family knew that Elvis could not cook. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and sat at the entrance of the stone house. The setting sun dyed half the sky red, and the afterglow shone on Gu Mengmeng, making her look like a little sun emitting energy. It was warm and scorching, making one yearn for it, making one unable to resist it, making one want to cherish it. Hubby, can you help me? Gu Mengmeng raised her head and met Elvis's blue eyes, which were staring at her deeply. Elvis responded with a single word. But Gu Mengmeng lowered her head shyly and swallowed her saliva. Hubby, you look like this. It's tempting to commit a crime. Elvis smiled faintly and said, Yeah, when we first met, you said that being as handsome as me is against the rules, so you won't take responsibility. Gu Mengmeng also recalled the first time they met. She hooked her arms around his neck and said, At that time, I thought you were an elf living in the forest. He looked so proud and aloof, untainted by worldly affairs. Who would have thought that he was actually a pervert? Elvis also smiled and replied, Yeah, Black. Gu Mengmeng turned her head and asked again, Then how did you feel when you first saw me? Elvis was silent for a while before saying, very angry. Gu Mengmeng pouted and said, What shouldn't you say love at first sight at this time? Elvis shook his head and said, You were wearing a strange outfit that made one's blood boil. Even I almost could not control myself at that time. But you didn't even put up your guard at all. You extended your hand to someone you didn't even know. Whenever I think about it, if it wasn't me, there would be another man who saw you dressed like this and held your hand. I feel a ball of fire burning in my chest. I can't wait to bite all the males in the world to death, so that you can only belong to me. Gu Mengmeng felt a sweetness in her heart and leaned into Elvis's arms, saying, Don't I only belong to you now? Come, my dear and only hubby, help me cut this beast horn. Just draw a straight line from here, yes, just like that. Be careful, take your time. Digression. It's time to say goodbye to everyone again. Chapter 424. When Oriton returned, this was the scene he saw. Gu Mengmeng was kneeling in front of Elvis, directing Elvis to cut that piece of beast horn with full concentration. Elvis was extremely nervous throughout, as if what he was holding was not an ordinary beast horn, but an extremely precious treasure. The legendary Elvis, who was like the god of death, was actually frowning, his forehead filled with fine beads of sweat. Elvis, who could accurately hunt the one he wanted among hundreds of ferocious beasts, was now so careful that his sharp claws were trembling. Saint Nazir's wise snow fox, Leah, was squatting by the fire, adding more firewood while stirring the soup in the pot. He would occasionally look up at Gu Mengmeng and Elvis fighting with the beast horn, then smile gently. The legendary cruel and decisive black and white duo. Were they really these two people who looked so blissful and gentle? Leah was the first to notice Oriton. Seeing him standing there in a daze, he waved his hand and said, Hey, we're sharing a meal. Bring the ingredients over quickly after washing them. Oh, Oriton responded, but his feet did not move. Could he also walk into this blissful scene? Gu Mengmeng sighed, her little face collapsing into a bun. Elvis looked at the beast horn that had been broken into 8 pieces in his hands, panicking and not knowing what to do. He said, Xiaomeng, don't be sad. I'll hunt this kind of beast tomorrow and find a thicker and bigger one for you, all right? Gu Mengmeng's heart ached as she held on to those half-finished products. She nodded helplessly and said, That's the only way. What a pity. We've been working on it for half a day and we're so close to succeeding. Elvis could not bear to see Gu Mengmeng disappointed, so he hugged her in his arms and comforted her. Be good. I'll do it with you tomorrow. With today's experience, we'll definitely succeed tomorrow. Trust me, all right? Gu Mengmeng nodded and replied, Yeah, then let's eat first. I've been starving for half a day. Elvis turned around and looked at Oriton, who was still in a daze. He said unhappily, Do you want to come over and eat with us? If you don't, I'll go prepare other prey. Oriton then regained his senses, and walked quickly towards Gu Mingming. His heart was madly beating nonstop. It was as if he was hallucinating, that he was also a member of this family. No one cared about Oriton's inner thoughts. Leah automatically took the meat from Oriton's hands and frowned. Who taught you to handle it this way? Oriton didn't understand and replied, I think he's called Lawson. Leah sneered and asked again. You didn't tell them that this meat is for Mingming to eat, right? Oriton shook his head, indicating that he did not say anything. Leah sighed. I knew it. If you had told them it was for Mingming, they would not have pranked you. Oriton frowned, not understanding what was going on. Leah said, Look, the lines on this meat are not severed. Females don't have fangs, so it will be very difficult for them to bite. That's why when we deal with our prey, we'll cut off the meat to make it easier for the female to chew. Oriton lowered his head in frustration and said, I'm sorry, I've never taken care of a female before, so I don't understand these things. Leah patted his shoulder and said, You're a member of Saint Nazir now and you're so powerful. As long as you're willing, there will definitely be good females willing to accept you. So you have to learn all these and remember them. Otherwise, your female will not like you in the future. Aside from the topic, it was the last day of January. The monthly ticket would expire tomorrow. Chapter 425. My female. Huh. Oriton instinctively looked at Gu Mingming and Elvis, wondering if he would one day have a partner like Gu Mingming, who did not mind his background and was willing to act coquettishly in his arms. Even if it was just pointlessly cutting beast horns together, he could still smile so blissfully. Smile. Oriton purposely pulled the corners of his lips, wanting to show Elvis's expression, but the corners of his lips were too heavy. He could not pull them up no matter what. Leah was observing Oriton's every expression, smiling as he patted his shoulder. Are you envious? Oriton nodded. Leah, I'm envious too. Originally, she used to smile like this in my arms. Oriton glanced sideways, his eyes filled with a trace of sympathy. Leah returned a smile. Mingming did not abandon me. I was the one who made the foolish choice. So, I am already very satisfied to be able to stay by her side like this. Don't pity me, because I am not pitiful. Oriton nodded again. Actually, I am envious of you too. Leah curled his lips proudly, waving his large tail behind him. Of course you should be envious of me, because I am the happiest male in this world, other than Elvis. Oriton looked at Lee's tail in confusion, asking, You are clearly a fully evolved orc. Why do you always pretend to be a half-orc? Leah looked at Oriton as if he was looking at an idiot, replying, Of course it's because my Mingming likes my tail. Oriton thought for a moment, then asked again. Then today, the people in Sauter suddenly started pretending to be half-orcs, wagging their tails and revealing their beast ears. All to please Gu Mingming? Leah nodded, replying, Should be. But their efforts are futile. My Mingming only likes a pure white tail and a black tail. Oriton remained silent for a moment, before slowly transforming his own tail. A pure white tail and a black tail. Wasn't that referring to his tail? Oriton did not say a word, only focusing on how Leah changed his knife to deal with the prey, then memorizing every detail. His eyes drifted to Gu Mingming from time to time, only to realize that her eyes seemed to only see Elvis. If Elvis could become Gu Mingming's first partner, because he had a black tail. If Leah could become Gu Mingming's beast pet, because he had a white tail. Then, since he had a black and white tail, did that mean he could become the third happiest male in the world? Leah sliced the meat and started placing it into the pot. Everyone was given a pair of chopsticks made of twigs and a small bowl. The water was boiling just right. Leah had sliced the meat until it was as thin as a cicada's wing, and it was cooked immediately. Gu Mingming, Elvis and Leah all started eating, but only Oriton was holding onto 2 pieces of wood, not knowing what to do. He imitated how Leah and Elvis held the chopsticks, but in his nervousness, he heard a cracking sound. The chopsticks broke. Gu Mingming looked up and smiled gently. It's all right. Elvis and Leah were the same when they first used chopsticks. You're just not used to it. As she spoke, Gu Mingming scooped a piece of meat from the pot with her chopsticks and placed it in Oratin's bowl. Is this your first time eating cooked food? Try it and see if it suits your taste. Chapter 426. Oratin's face flushed red instantly, and his mouth felt like it was on fire. Looking at Gu Mingming's expectant gaze, he nodded his head stiffly and said, "Delicious." But Gu Mingming could clearly feel Oratin's stubbornness. How should he put it? Gu Mingming was just purely bad. She knew that people in the beast world did not eat chili, and these two pieces of meat were definitely Oratin's first taste of chili. She was indeed looking forward to it. But she was looking forward to seeing Oratin's reaction after being spiced by the chili. Who knew that this fellow actually had no reaction at all? Actually, it wasn't that there weren't any. His eyelids twitched uncontrollably, and his eyes were bloodshot, giving off a funny and ferocious feeling. Gu Mingming was a little disappointed when she did not see the reaction she had expected. However, she still passed a bowl of water to Oratin and said, "Don't force yourself if you are not used to chili. Drink some water and calm down." Oratin was still expressionless, but when he took the bowl of water, he looked at Gu Mingming hesitantly. Gu Mingming smiled. "Don't worry, it's clean water. There's nothing strange in it." Oratin replied with a single syllable, then gulped down all the water in the bowl. Wiping his mouth with his arm, he passed the bowl to Gu Mingming. More. Gu Mingming was just about to take the bowl when Leah walked over while wagging his tail. "Hey, are you the beast deity?" Oratin did not understand why Leah would ask such a question, but the answer was obviously not the case, so he shook his head honestly. Leah hugged Gu Mingming's waist with one arm and took over the water bowl from her hand with the other. He threw it back into Oratin's arms and then forcefully stuffed his large tail into Gu Mingming's arms. Gu Mingming instinctively hugged Lee's tail and stroked it twice. Leah sighed in comfort before continuing to look at Oratin. "My Gu Mingming is the messenger of the beast deity, the biological daughter of the mighty beast deity. Other than the beast deity, who would dare to order her around? I'm warning you, if I see you ordering my family's Mingming around again, I'll put you into the pot and eat you." Only now did Oratin realize what he had just done. In the beast world, how could there be a female taking care of a male? Even the babies were taken care of by their fathers. How could he? "I'm sorry." Oratin lowered his head. His tone was sincere, and his face was expressionless. Gu Mingming felt rather awkward and said, "Aya, it's actually nothing much. He's a guest and doesn't know where we keep our things. It's rude of him to touch anything he wants. It's normal for him to let me take it. It's fine, there's no need to apologize." Gu Mingming patted Lee's chest to soothe his breathing. Then, she turned around and smiled at Elvis, who was already clenching his fists and ready to strike. Finally, she pointed at the huge water tank not far away and said, "There, the water is all over there. You can go get it yourself, don't stand on ceremony." Oratin raised his head and asked, "Aren't you going to chase me away?" Gu Mingming retorted, "Why should I chase you away?" Oratin was silent. He seemed to be troubled by this problem as well. After thinking for a long time, he said, "I don't know how to say nice things. I don't know how to coax you like he does. And I don't know how to curry favor with you like he did. I don't know how to order you around." That you're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.